At least one person has been killed and 9 others wounded after a gunman drove a vehicle into a Mormon church in Michigan, the United States. Hungarian and Slovakian leaders marked the 130th anniversary of a bridge connecting both countries, lambasting the EU over plans to abandon Russian oil.
At least 4 people were killed in Ukraine's capital Kyiv, including 1 child, as Russia launched a major overnight assault targeting multiple cities.
An Iranian lawmaker says Tehran is considering withdrawing from the nuclear treaty over reimposed UN sanctions triggered by France, Germany, and the UK. At least one person has been killed and 9 others wounded after a gunman drove a vehicle into a Mormon church in Michigan, the United States, shooting indiscriminately. U.S. authorities said the alleged shooter, a 40-year-old male who also set part of the church building on fire, was shot dead by police. The attack in Grand Blanc on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormon Church, occurred during a Sunday service that attracts hundreds of people. It also came hours after Russell M. Nelson, the oldest ever president of the Mormon Church, died at 101 years old. U.S. officials warned they may discover additional victims, while police said investigators are continuing to search the suspect's residence for a motive. U.S. President Donald Trump condemned the shooting, calling it horrendous. Trump said the FBI will be leading the federal investigation. The Prime Ministers of Hungary and Slovakia appeared together on Sunday for the 130th anniversary of the construction of a bridge connecting their 2 countries. The Maria Valeria Bridge links Turovo, Slovakia, and Esztergom, Hungary, across the river Danube. Viktor Orban and Robert Fico, considered outliers in the European Union for their resistance to cutting ties with Moscow, lambasted the bloc in their speeches. The 2 leaders warned that cutting off Europe entirely from Russian oil and gas will not only harm Hungary and Slovakia the most, but will also significantly damage the entire European Union. Critics argue their Kremlin-friendly positions risk undermining Europe's united front against Russia's war in Ukraine while cementing their domestic power.
At least 4 people were killed and more than 70 others were injured as Russia carried out a major offensive on Ukraine overnight into Sunday. The attack targeted multiple cities, but was heaviest on the capital Kyiv and the southeastern city of Zaporizhia. Regional officials in Zaporizhia say the attacks injured more than 24 people, to varying degrees, among them 3 children. In Kyiv, 4 people were killed, including a 12-year-old child, as Moscow pummeled the city with drones and various types of missiles. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky slammed the strikes and accused Russia of deliberately targeting civilians to incite fear and terror. He also accused Moscow of making a statement on their position regarding ending the war after it received a wave of international condemnation at the UN General Assembly. The Ukrainian leader urged allies again to exert more pressure on Russia to bring the full-scale invasion of his country, well into its 4th year, to an end. He also called on allies to heed U.S. President Donald Trump's plan and halt Russian energy purchases to choke the Kremlin's finances and force them to the negotiating table.
Iranian lawmakers weighed on Sunday about how to respond to the reimposed UN sanctions over its nuclear program, with one parliamentarian suggesting Tehran could potentially withdraw from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The sanctions again freeze Iranian assets abroad and penalize any development of Iran's ballistic missile program, among other measures. The sanctions came into force on Sunday via a mechanism known as snapback, included in Iran's 2015 nuclear deal with major world powers. It also comes 3 months after Israel and the U.S. bombed Iran, barred dealings related to Tehran's nuclear and ballistic missiles program. The sanctions are expected to have wider effects on Iran's troubled economy.